Thank you, Daniel. We're going to move right on into the questions at this point. Tom, as we said before, you're on my left, so you'll get the first one. The United States has borne witness to many challenges and devastating acts over the years. Al-Qaeda attacks on the U.S., federal deficit, economy, healthcare, racial divide, and the immigration crisis, to name a few. My question to you is, what do you believe are the three most important challenges facing our country today, and how do you propose to address each of them?
Mark, perfect. I got started getting ready for this campaign in 2016 after the Pulse nightclub shooting, when the Democrats all lost their minds and started talking about taking guns away from everybody in the country. As a counterterrorism expert, I knew that we didn't have a gun problem, that we had a mental health problem. So I started getting busy looking at the issues when I decided I was going to run against Mark Warner. I have four main planks in my platform. The four main planks are immigration, because we've got to have immigration reform. If we're not going to get immigration reform, because they won't give it to us, neither party, then we're going to have to build a wall. So I'm with Trump on building the wall. Secondarily, the mental health gun violence problem. We don't have a gun violence problem. We have a 17-city Democrat problem. All the actual gun violence, the homicides, occur in the same 17 cities, and they have for the last 50 years. The mental health crisis, though, is monumental. 1.4 million attempted suicides every year, 40,000 successful suicides, not to mention the bullying and the anxiety and the depression generally. Then also, on top of that, the American dream, which I believe is education. Our education system is floundering, and we need every possible mechanism that we can use to build human capital into our communities today. And that means going back to trade schools. It means online learning. It means everything, full bore, all of it at the same time. And I believe that that's the American dream. I think that we've got to have that opportunity, that limitless opportunity of education. And then finally, long before we had these protests and these violence, these riots and this looting, I had identified criminal justice reform as a problem that we had to address. So I have four critical issues, but they all interweave with each other. So one change in any of those four will have cascading effects in the other areas. And so my overall platform is that mosaic of four problems that I want to prioritize to heal our country and bring our country back the way that Donald Trump wants to.
Okay, thank you. Alyssa? Is it Alyssa or Elisa?
It's Elisa, although at this point I've heard it pronounced so many different ways, I'm not sure I'm saying it correctly. Okay. But it is Elisa Baldwin.
Okay, Elisa.
No problem. No problem.
That same question is posed to you. Do you need me to reread it, or are you good?
The three important challenges and how to address. Yes. All right, sir. So for me, it's education reform, and certainly I can attack that problem from a 16 years worth of experience being on the inside of public school classrooms, as well as teaching in a homeschool cooperative and fully supporting parent choice, because we know that parents are the first teachers of any child, and therefore they should have their authority to make the decision of what's the best educational experience for their child. And to do that, we need to get the federal government out of the classroom business. They've made it harder for teachers. So with a return to of power to the state and local level, teachers will have better authority to do their job as trusted professionals, and parents will get to make an informed choice of what experience will best benefit their child, so that every student succeeds truly, not just as a piece of legislation that was passed. Secondly, we've really got to look at healthcare. That can't just be a talking point or an issue that the Democrats put out there to attack Republicans. I've been very passionate, very vocal about medical freedom and informed consent legislation, as well as lowering prescription drug costs with the bureaucracy and the entanglements of the FDA process, and limiting the importation of some drugs and allowing others. We've really got a problem there, and we need to focus on America first supply chains even to help with prescription drug costs, and then fix our entitlement programs there as well for healthcare reform. And then the third issue that I would say we've really got to focus on remains a priority just as it was in 2016 when President Trump was elected, and that's immigration. We absolutely need to secure the border, not just with a physical barrier, but also additional infrastructure, technology, and personnel support. And then a merit-based system. We need to put Americans first, make sure that those who are coming here on visas are not overstaying them, and that the jobs go first to Americans, the training is provided to Americans, and then the cost will benefit Americans as well in those jobs with a reduction in the amount of H-1B visas. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Elisa. Daniel, it's your turn. Do you need me to repeat the question?
No, sir, I've got it. Thank you very much.
Okay.
So I think our number one, you asked for 3, and I'm going to give you 3. I think the number one thing that we need to work on is our budget deficit. It's the one thing that affects all of the rest of these things. So an example of this is our national debt is so high right now that a 1% increase in the interest rate will cause us to spend an additional $300 billion a year in interest payments. So what that means is eventually all of that deficit, all of that overspending, especially on entitlement programs, is going to cause us to not have any money for any of the things that we want to do. Of course, we have to do mandatory spending, but we want to do a whole bunch of other things like defense spending, for example. So the number one thing we got to take a whack at is budget deficits, and I propose a balanced budget amendment to the Constitution. I think we need one. Our political leaders, Mark Warner, years and years ago said he was for a balanced budget amendment, and now he's flip-flopped and he's not for one. And so we need to get after a balanced budget amendment. The second thing we need to do, and I'll just double down on previous comments on this, even in the era of COVID, especially in the era of COVID, as we recover from this, we need to reinvigorate the free market system. That means continuing President Trump's excellent deregulatory work. It means empowering small businesses to make their own decisions, to be able to sell across state lines easily. We may need a payroll tax holiday to get through 2021, and that's something that we'll have to see what economic conditions are at that time. And then the last thing is individual liberty just matters so much. And so if you look at what the Democrats are trying to do with restricting freedom of speech and assembly and religion and the Second Amendment and the 10th Amendment and the 4th Amendment and the 5th Amendment, you see that our individual liberties are under direct assault by the Democrat Party, and that's got to stop. So I will stand up for our individual liberty, which, by the way, I believe begins in the womb, because there's no such thing as liberty without life. And so I'm pro-life, and proudly so, and happy to defend that to the end of the earth. And I'm out of time. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, Daniel.